want to get a testimonial. You gave Doug the Mayor's Award many years ago. So what do you think of his work?
I think his work is beautiful.
I'm Doug Martenson. I'm a painter from Philadelphia, and this is my most recent show at the Gross McCleaf Gallery. I've been showing here since 1984, and I think they said it was the 10th exhibition I've had. The title of the show is Around the Bend. I want people to feel like they can enter the paintings and investigate what's around the bend. What is coming next? Where are we going? Why are we doing what we're doing at this moment? I've been very interested lately in tonalism. Innes was the most famous of the tonalists, but painters like Alexander Wyatt, Ralph Blakelock, those kinds of painters that really worked the surfaces. They were more concerned with the metaphor of what landscape meant and how the early morning or the late afternoon would affect the environment. The sky, for instance, are very active in these paintings. The very cloudy and swiftly moving sky is a metaphor for change. The wind blowing against the trees, the grasses moving, a feeling that you might get when you're out there. There's one painting in the show called White Tent. It's from this point that has been a great inspiration to me. It's called Fly Point. I was really struck by the way this tent on a very cloudy day melded into the sky, created this strong spatial relationship between the foreground, middle, and background, and the way you have the indoor-outdoor feel. This metaphor for the window into the painting. This painting is the two trees and the light falling on them, but it represents this asymmetrical composition that moves your eye to the left and then forces you through to the right, moving up the clouds and back into the space. That was done very near the Thomas Cole house, and I was thinking of Thomas Cole and Frederick Church from the Hudson River Group. When I came back to the studio, it really struck me as these two elements, these two personalities, and the two personalities are like Thomas Cole and Frederick Church. Blue Hill, Maine, there's a property there that has 17 acres that I can just wander around, and it was a motif for me for a good 8 years now. It's got a landscape that isn't refined, it's natural. The way that the light fills the space and moves and changes during the day is endlessly stimulating to me. The studio process becomes a really important issue to it, to be able to create the paint quality, the light the way I want it. When I'm teaching, I often am confronted with this question of why paint versus some of the new media, like video or do a performance. I believe the paintings are still relevant. I also relate it to, like, if you were a musician. No one questions why a violinist still uses a violin. I think there's something about being human that makes the contact with the brush and the physicality of it something very open and pertinent today. I'm from New York State originally. I grew up outside of Syracuse, so I think I'm still very tied to that kind of imagery up there. That area, being very rural still, is a great draw, and it's the gateway to the mountain range of the Catskills. In my youth, before I studied at the Pennsylvania Academy, I would paint from the landscape around the property that my parents owned. I'd spend many hours wandering the fields and responding to what's happening there. It still draws me. That's what you try to represent in these kinds of paintings, the natural world. One of my teachers at the Pennsylvania Academy was the painter Louis Sloan. I worked very closely with him while I was a student and then for some years after. He used to bring the students to the Catskill Mountains to a YMCA camp for Columbus Day weekend, as well as going out painting on location with him on Sundays. He was somebody that really shared with all of us, and we became very passionate about the natural world and working in the landscape. The trips up to the Catskills were a nice retreat and a way of relaxing and getting away from the school environment, but it also gave us an idea of what it was to go on a painting trip and have that focus. We usually had nothing but rain and different weather conditions, snow and pelting sleet. But it had these wonderful fall colors that we all struggled to deal with when we were out there. And he always had this calm nature about him, very sage advice and very practical things to say and develop. When I started teaching at the Pennsylvania Academy, I took over the trip that Lou had started. So for 5 years, we went up on the same Columbus Day weekend, dealt with the same conditions, and I worked with the students like an artist in residence. It was really important for them to see what I would go through to make a painting and how the image would be framed and what I would try to think about when I was working out there. And when you look at the motif as a student with the faculty, you see how they crystallize what that image is. It becomes much easier for them to try to find that for themselves.
Doug is on the best teachers at Penn list every year for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years running on the Penn Course Review. One of the best professors. So it's kind of like the Wall of Fame, Wall of Shame. He's on the Wall of Fame.
I'm teaching a landscape class at the Pennsylvania Academy, and it was a location that I found for the students. It was really taken by this row of trees. I'd done a demo and really liked what I was working with, so I went back to paint it myself. George Innes said when he worked in the studio, he invited nature in for a visit. I often think about that. I hope the viewer, when confronted with the images, will be able to take time to look at each image and respond to it in their own way. And really the idea is to get a feeling. You can feel the light, the space, the environment, what season it is, and hopefully you recollect a landscape that you know.